Good evening, everyone. I'm Megan Coleman. We'll get to Matt in a moment. And we continue our live team coverage tonight of the guilty verdict handed down today for Dr. Robert Newlander in the death of his wife, Leslie. Right now, we're getting our first look at Robert Newlander's mugshot after getting the guilty verdict today. Now, earlier in the day, he, along with other members of his family, including his daughter Jenna, were waiting anxiously outside the courtroom for the verdict to be handed down. Tonight, Matt joins us live from the courthouse where all of the emotional drama unfolded earlier today. Matt?
Well, Megan, to give you some perspective of where we're standing, we're about 100 yards from the Justice Center. That's where Dr. Newlander is now housed as an inmate of Onondaga County. Right behind me is the Onondaga County Courthouse, where the trial took place over the last couple of weeks. And late this morning, that verdict came in. Guilty on both counts of murder in the second degree and tampering with evidence. Dr. Robert Newlander found guilty of murdering his wife, Leslie, in September of 2012. Now, as you mentioned, this was a very emotional day for family members and supporters of the Newlander family who had packed the courtroom in those tense moments awaiting that verdict. Sarah Beth Ackerman was inside that courtroom. She's been covering the trial since it started. Sarah Beth. Hey, thank you, Sarah Beth, for all of your coverage. Now, Leslie Newlander was discovered dead in September of 2012. The investigation really didn't get underway till quite a while after that. The medical examiner initially ruled her death an accident. Newlander told police he found her in the shower of their home, saying she slipped and fell. He then moved her to the bedroom, but prosecutors say he killed her and then he tried to cover up that crime. Now remember, it was September of 2012 when Newlander asked his daughter to call 911 to get some help after he says he found his wife Leslie hurt in the shower. In April of 2013, that's when we were first to report that Newlander was under investigation when there were police detectives at his home picking up forensic information that was gathered at the scene that led them to consider the doctor as a suspect in his wife's death. It would take until June of last year before they would indict Dr. Newlander, saying that he had staged the scene, changed the sheets in the bed, and now, after 3 weeks on trial, the jury found Dr. Newlander guilty on all counts. Difficult job for the jury, that's for sure. Last week started with jury selection opening statements. There were dozens of graphic pictures used during the trial, the horrifying 911 calls that we heard of Jenna Newlander and her voice on scene. Alex Dunbar joins us now with more on what the district attorney said after the verdict was read in court today, and more specifically, the role Jenna Newlander played in this case. Alex? All right, thank you, Alex Dunbar. Appreciate that perspective tonight. Our team coverage will continue throughout the night tonight on this verdict. Dr. Robert Newlander, guilty of murdering his wife. Megan?
Okay, so a lot of people have been following from the beginning. Matt, we'll see in a bit. Thank you. Well, just a reminder, we have learned Dr. Newlander's sentencing date is May 1st. His defense attorney, Ed Mencken, says he will continue to fight the decision. Don't forget, for complete coverage in the Newlander trial and a guilty verdict, go to our website, cnycentral.com. All right, let's switch gears for you tonight and get a check of the forecast, because that really is what everybody's been talking about today, this warm weather. Nice to get a little dose of spring. Let's start off with the good news. We'll hear from neighbors across the community sounding off on today's guilty verdict.
It's the first time I see something so terrible.
Bringing to justice those who are responsible.
Lots of people whose hands were covered with blood.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Megan Coleman.
I'm Matt Mulcahy. We continue our coverage of the tragic terror attacks in Brussels, Belgium. Dozens of people were killed, hundreds more injured in several explosions.
And tonight, much of Europe remains on high alert with a manhunt now underway for at least one of the terrorists. You can hear the screams and cries for help, the chaotic scene at the airport in Brussels today following the second explosion. You can hear people frantically screaming and running for their lives. Officials say one of the explosions took place outside a security checkpoint for ticketed passengers. A third explosion rocked a subway station there. The attacks come days after the arrest of one of the masterminds of the Paris terror attacks from November. Belgian officials believe the two attacks are linked. Here's what we know so far tonight. At least 31 people were killed in the bombings. At least 190 others were hurt. And tonight, ISIS is claiming responsibility for the attacks. Our Alex Rusilla joins us here in the studio, sharing the story of a Fulton man who arrived at the airport right after those explosions happened. Alex?
Thank you, Alex. Right now, we want to take you live to Belgium. That's where a vigil continues tonight. Candles set up, flowers, crowds gathering to remember the lives lost and all the victims of the terrorist attacks.
This has continued to grow throughout the evening, and you can see that night has now fallen on Brussels, Belgium. Folks coming out to pay their respects to the victims gathered around. Certainly a much less chaotic scene there tonight. Now it is all about pausing to remember and reflect on the victims' lives.
Beefed up security tonight across New York City in the wake of the attacks. Very visible. Additional National Guard members called out, assigned to JFK and LaGuardia airports. There are more state troopers at Penn and Grand Central stations, Midtown, along with the George Washington Bridge, and also at the Freedom Tower, One World Trade Center. Happening now, Samantha German joins us live from Hancock Airport in Syracuse, where the effort is underway in an elevated state of security. Samantha.
Well, today we spoke with a counterterrorism expert at Syracuse University.
Yeah, they explained to us why Belgium has become such a hot spot for this international terrorism. Alex Dunbar has the latest. It's amazing how we learn more about these parts of the world that maybe we weren't that exposed to until something so terrible happens. Now, some students from Cornell University are studying abroad in Brussels. They were there at the time of the attack today.
The university tells us the students are safe and have been accounted for.
You can get more information of detail about what's going on in terms of security here at home across New York State by going to our website, cnycentral.com.
Don't forget to stay tuned to NBC3 for continuing coverage of the Brussels attack. NBC Nightly News will have an hour-long special beginning at 6:30 tonight, following us on NBC3 News at 6.
Now we want to check in with Chief Meteorologist Wayne Mahar to find out what's ahead in the weather for us this evening. Wayne.
All right, Wayne, thank you. Coming up, 2 are under arrest, charged with a horrifying case of child sexual abuse.
Now the FBI is involved. Parents at a local school, they're bracing for the worst. Why a school in Syracuse could be impacted by this investigation. Good evening, I'm Matt Mulcahy. We continue our breaking news coverage out of California this evening to the scene of a mass shooting. It took place at a facility that serves people with developmental disabilities in San Bernardino, California, about 60 miles north and east of Los Angeles. We now know from the police chief there, 14 people have been killed, 14 more injured and taken to the hospital. Some of those injuries are also quite serious. Others were injured and treated at the scene from injuries that the police chief said they may have incurred while trying to escape or evacuate from the facility. It's called the Inland Regional Services Center. Again, helps people with disabilities. Hundreds of people work there. Thousands of people are serviced out of that facility each week. Reports say the suspects were wearing military-style gear. In fact, we heard from a witness live here on the air at about 5:30. He was talking to his sister, who was inside, who saw one of the gunmen carrying a long gun, a rifle of some sort, and wearing a mask. The police chief said that they were also 3 men that were prepared for some kind of mission. Dan Sheneman has more. We'll continue to follow the story throughout the next half hour. Nightly News with Lester Holt will have a complete wrap-up coming up at 6:30. Well, tonight, our continued coverage of the deadly beatings at the Word of Life Church in New Hartford. Today, for the first time since the investigation began, we heard from the mother of the 2 victims, Deborah Leonard. Now, the emotional mother stood before a judge in the Oneida County courtroom in Utica. She pled guilty to the reduced assault charge in the beatings. Deborah told the court she participated in the beatings against her 2 sons, and we're learning she could testify against the others who are accused. Deborah Leonard's one of 2 suspects not facing a murder charge. You may remember it was those beatings back in October that killed 19-year-old Lucas Leonard. His younger brother Christopher Leonard was badly injured, had to spend several days in the hospital. He eventually had to speak at a hearing in court against his fellow family members. Now at 6, we get the latest from Sarah Beth Ackerman tonight. And don't forget, for complete coverage of the church beating investigation, including the full indictment for all the suspects involved, you can visit our website, cnycentral.com. Syracuse police have made a second arrest in a homicide in Eastwood. It happened over the summer. The victim was a 71-year-old grandfather. Police say robbery, that was the motive. Police say this man, 42-year-old Elijah Mitchell, pulled the trigger. He's charged with first-degree murder and robbery. Mitchell was arrested yesterday in New York City on unrelated charges and brought to Syracuse once they figured out who he actually was. In August, David Steiner was found shot to death in a car near the Key Bank on James Street. A few weeks later, police arrested Michael Walker and charged him with second-degree murder. Both suspects are being held at the Justice Center. Police say they are not from the area, but they did know the victim.
they targeted him to rob him. So obviously they knew that he was, for some reason, would be in possession, or they assumed that for some reason he would be in possession of some type of valuable.
Police say while they are not looking for more suspects, they are asking one with additional information to give them a call. We want to get a quick check on our forecast now. Here's meteorologist Mike Brookins tonight. Mike? Yeah, there was also a bit of a traffic tie-up not far from the Dome, something to keep in mind if you're still planning to get to that game by 7 tonight. Well, in about an hour, the SU men's team will take to the hardwood for a tough early season test. Malachi Richardson for 3. The Orange are getting set to take on the powerhouse Wisconsin Badgers. Remember, they're in the Final Four? Well, even though the Badgers are not what they were a year ago, you can be sure the Orange will not take this national championship contender from last year lightly. Right now, our Kelly Cowan joins us live from the Dome that will be hopping tonight. Kelly. Thank you, Kelly. Looking forward to a fun time at the Dome. Well, the hunt is on for a man police say allegedly punched a 72-year-old woman in the face in Cortland yesterday morning. Coming up, we'll hear from a worker who says he was near the scene when it happened and how you can help police track the person responsible. Good afternoon and welcome to Manley Arena here in Syracuse, New York. The whole town's painted orange this afternoon. I'm Matt Mulcahy.
Hi, everybody. I'm Megan Coleman. It is electrifying in here right now. People have already started filing into Manley. They're getting excited for the big pep rally, which gets underway in about a half an hour from now.
It's going to be a fun afternoon. In fact, Coach Boeheim was just putting the team through the last practice before they hit the road. Now, crews have been working all morning to set up for this pep rally today, putting the banners in place, getting out the terrible towels. Some of the guest speakers will include Coach Jim Boeheim, Quentin Hillsman, of course, SU Athletic Director Mark Coyle, the County Executive Joni Mahoney, Mayor Stephanie Miner. As of 11 a.m. today, by the way, SU says its allotment of Final Four tickets has been sold out. So this is a hot ticket to get.
It is a hot ticket. You know, I was talking to some folks earlier today who said that people started filing up here at Manley at 10 o'clock this morning. They have been waiting to get in here. They've started to let the crowd in. You can probably hear a lot of them cheering behind us. And look who we have behind us.
Yeah, the SU dance team is here. Orange. Yeah, show us what you have there, ladies.
Orange. Let's go Orange. Let's go Orange.
Oh, and they know that cheer over.
That's good. Thank you. They got a lot of work to do today. They're actually heading off to Indianapolis for the women's Final Four. They leave tomorrow, so it's going to be a lot of fun for them, too. We got to keep in mind, we have the women in Indianapolis, and we have the men heading to Houston in the next couple of hours.
And, you know, if you had talked to Orange fans a week ago or a month ago, they could have never imagined that we would have had two teams going to the Final Four. It is really an exciting year to be an Orange fan. And, you know, let's track back to tell you a little bit about how we got here. During the first round of the tournament, SU defeated the Dayton Flyers 70-51, getting revenge against the team that bounced them from the tournament 2 years ago. In the second round, SU took down Middle Tennessee with a score of 75-50. SU then met a tough Gonzaga Bulldogs in the Sweet 16. The Orange came away victorious in a tight game with a score of 63-60. And perhaps in one of the biggest upsets of the tournament, SU took down the #1 seeded Virginia Cavaliers. The Orange went on a late second half rally to surge past Virginia to advance to the Final Four.
And then, of course, that magical moment that came after that victory that clinched the Final Four berth against Virginia when Coach Jim Boeheim got to cut down the net along with all the members of his team. You know, the new popular hero out of all this certainly has become Malachi Richardson, the star freshman. In fact, we saw last night when we had some pictures in from Houston that Malachi's picture is the one putting up on banners in Houston when people are going to arrive at the Final Four site.
Now, we know exactly what everyone's going to be doing this Saturday night. Don't forget, you can cheer on the men's team on Saturday when they take on the North Carolina Tar Heels. Tip-off is at 8:49. You can watch that game on TBS or TNT.
And, you know, we've been talking about the T-shirts that have been printed throughout the week. The double team T-shirt that came out from Holy Shirt yesterday, that's, of course, because we have the men and the women. And Coach Quentin Hillsman has really built this program over 10 years into one that's so successful. Now they're heading to their own Final Four.
That's right. Coach Q getting a lot of well-deserved attention. People not only cheering on the men, but the women this year. So let's take you back and a look at some of their journey to the Final Four. The Orange hosted the first two rounds of the tournament at the Carrier Dome here when they defeated Army with a score of 73-56. The women's team also took down Albany in the second round, 76-59. Then during the Sweet 16, the Orange came away victorious in an upset win over South Carolina. And in the Elite Eight, the Orange crushed Tennessee with a final score of 89-67.
And then, of course, another moment that Syracuse sports fans just love to see. The Final Four clinched again by Coach Q and the women's team, and then they had their turn to cut down the nets as they were out in South Dakota, ready for that trip to Indianapolis coming up. The last school to have both the men's and the women's in the Final Four at the same time was UConn, and UConn happened to clinch both the national titles that year. So certainly Syracuse fans in the program hoping for the same result this year. And of course, SU fans just could not contain their excitement. Sunday night, after the big wins, the students went crazy in kind of a controlled party, I guess is the best way to say it. Police were standing on the fringes, keeping an eye on things, but in the end, really a lot of fun there for sure.
And so, not only will folks be cheering on the men on Saturday, but then again on Sunday, turn those TVs back on again. The women will take on Washington this Sunday. Tip-off for that game is at 8:30, and you can watch that game on ESPN2.
Now, the question everyone is asking, aside from how do I get a ticket? How do I get to Houston? Can Nico pack me in his luggage? But can Syracuse, on both ends, the men's and the women's, actually win the national title?
Absolutely. It's March Madness. I mean, how many people counted Syracuse out of making the tournament? How many people counted Syracuse out against Virginia? They did.
Nico, thanks for joining us. We are looking forward to your coverage when you get to Houston.
Live coverage from Manley Fieldhouse will continue in just a minute here on NBC3.
Our top story at 6, presidential candidates continue to make their presence known here in New York ahead of next Tuesday's primary.
Tomorrow, Democratic candidate Bernie Sanders will pay a visit to Syracuse. He's scheduled to hold a rally at the On Center. That event begins at 2. The doors open at 11. No ticket required to get in.
But before Sanders makes his way to the Salt City, he paid a visit to Binghamton today, hoping to rally support from potential voters. Our Brandon Roth was at the rally. We get the latest from him now at 6. They're feeling the burn down there, as they say.
Yeah, and he'll be bringing that rally here to Syracuse tomorrow. If you'd like to RSVP to tomorrow's rally, although, as we said, you don't have to, but the campaign would love it if you did, go to our website. We'll get you there with a link at cnycentral.com. And the campaign frenzy continues today. We learned Donald Trump will make an appearance in Utica tomorrow. The time or venue have not been announced for the GOP frontrunner, but we'll have latest details for you when it comes out. Trump is the third candidate to announce a visit in Central New York this week.
And the excitement continues when Senator Ted Cruz comes to Syracuse on Friday. Cruz's camp confirms his visit to us, although details about the visit are still in the works. Be sure to stay tuned to NBC3 and our website, cnycentral.com. We will let you know when we have more.
All right, now we want to get a quick check on the weather. Here's Chief Meteorologist Wayne Mahar. And Wayne, we're trying to finish off these couple of days that have been cooler and wet to get ready for later in the week.
Wayne, the former John Katko staffer and Syracuse police officer accused of stealing from the city, was due in court this morning. Tom Cannellan's lawyers appeared for him today. He was not in court. Cannellan is accused of getting paid for services by the State Department of Financial Services while on the Syracuse police payroll. The DA's office says right now they're discussing their next move. They say there's no indictment filed yet or plea deal that's being offered. Cannellan's due back in court next month. Cayuga County Sheriff's deputies say 37-year-old Raymond Campagna Jr. was high on marijuana and drunk at the time of a deadly crash that killed a 1-month-old baby. Deputies say he was driving north on Route 34 around 1 a.m. Saturday when police say he swerved into oncoming traffic, slamming into a pickup truck. The baby, Casey Potter, was taken to the Upstate University Hospital, where he later died. His mother was also taken to the hospital and is now in fair condition. Campagna will be arraigned in Flemingtown Court tomorrow night. A GoFundMe page has now been set up to help the family of the baby killed in the crash. So far, you can see they've raised close to $4,000. They've been sharing updates on the GoFundMe page, people sharing their sentiments of the heartbreak of losing this sweet baby boy.
West Genesee High School was forced to evacuate after a student discovered a bomb threat. A teacher said a student approached them this afternoon. Their school book had a nonspecific threat written inside it. School quickly determined the book had not been used in the past week. Camillus police say one student is a person of interest, but no arrests have been made. Nearly 24 people are facing charges tonight for their involvement in a drug trafficking ring. State police say the people were shipping illegal drugs through the Postal Service. Investigators intercepted some of the drugs at the North Syracuse Post Office. They came from California, Colorado, and other countries like India and China, too. Well, new at 6, our Alex Dunbar attended the news conference in Oneida, talked with the police. We get the latest from him. Thank you, Alex. Appreciate all those details. You never know what's in the mail.
Yeah.
Trial date has been set for the man accused of killing his daughter 2 months ago. September 19th, that's when Ryan Lawrence, who you see here in court today, will stand trial for the death of his 22-month-old daughter, Maddox.
It was our first glimpse of him in court today. The judge ruled Lawrence is fit to stand trial following a mental health examination. He's charged with first-degree murder and kidnapping and could face life behind bars without parole. Back in February, police issued an Amber Alert for Maddox. Lawrence was later found in Baldwinsville wearing a disguise. A day later, divers found the body of little Maddox in Syracuse's Inner Harbor.
Investigators say Ryan brought Maddox to Labrador Hollow in Tully. That's where he beat her to death, then burned her body. He later dumped her remains in the water by the Onondaga Creek Walk near the Inner Harbor.
Happening right now, our Sarah Beth Ackerman was in court. Our cameras were rolling as Lawrence walked into that courtroom. Now she's live outside the memorial honoring baby Maddox tonight. And Sarah Beth, it's clear folks are still really coming out to support that family. Well, there is just 1 week left to file your taxes, but you may still have some lingering questions.
Yeah, a couple last notes you want to get checked on. Coming up, we'll talk with financial experts about the tips you need before you file that return. The number to call, 477-9480.